you followed the number one rule of personal finance. You dutifully saved up 6 months of your hard-earned money, tucked it away in a savings account, and felt secure. But what if I told you that the way you've been told to do this is a trap, a strategy designed for a completely different economic world? In today's world, that safe money is quietly losing its power. And the very thing you think is protecting you might actually be costing you your financial future. I'm going to show you the truth about that old advice and a much smarter framework you should be using instead. For decades, the 6-month all-cash emergency fund has been the unquestioned rule of personal finance. Let's be clear, the intention behind it was good. It was meant to be a buffer for life's curveballs, a job loss, a medical bill, a surprise home repair. But it was advice for an economy that just doesn't exist anymore. That rule was born in an era of stable, predictable careers, where a layoff meant you'd likely find a similar job in a few weeks. It was created when housing and healthcare costs weren't skyrocketing, and a single income could often support an entire family. Now, let's get real. The world has changed, but the advice hasn't. We live in an economy defined by volatility. Layoffs happen in massive waves, and finding a comparable job can easily take 5 to 6 months, and sometimes much longer in specialized fields. While financial experts still recommend having 3 to 6 months of expenses saved, the reality on the ground is grim. Recent reports show nearly a quarter of Americans have no emergency savings whatsoever, and 1 in 3 don't have enough cash to cover even a $400 surprise expense. So the old rule isn't just a little outdated, it's creating a false sense of security for the few who actually manage to follow it, and it's a completely demoralizing standard for everyone else. The foundation is cracked, and building your financial house on it is a recipe for disaster. The first problem with stashing all your emergency cash in a savings account is a silent thief called inflation. Think of your emergency fund as a big bucket of water. You worked your tail off to fill it with, say, $30,000. But what you don't see is the slow, invisible leak. Every single day, a little bit of your purchasing power drips away, and you won't notice until you desperately need to use it. In 2026, even with inflation cooling, it's still a powerful force. Projections place it somewhere between 2.4% and 3.2%. You might think, no big deal! I have a high-yield savings account. And sure, that's way smarter than a traditional account. In February 2026, the best high-yield savings accounts are offering up to 4.21% APY. So, you're beating inflation, right? Wrong. You're only looking at the nominal return, the number you see in your bank statement. What actually matters is your real return, your interest rate minus the rate of inflation. If your account is paying 4.0% APY and inflation is hovering around 2.8%, your real return is just a measly 1.2%. Your money isn't really growing, it's just barely treading water. Let's make this tangible. Your $30,000 fund, after 1 year, might show a balance of $31,200. But in terms of what it can actually buy, it's only worth about $30,000 to $360 in yesterday's dollars. You technically made $1,200 in interest, but you lost $840 of your buying power to the invisible inflation tax. Over 5 or 10 years, this becomes a huge problem. That safe money you set aside is guaranteed to be worth less in the future. Storing all your security in cash is like trying to store ice in the sun. It doesn't matter how much you start with, you're guaranteed to end up with less. If inflation is a slow leak, then opportunity cost is the flood that washes your wealth away. This is the financial disaster nobody talks about when they tell you to hoard 6 months of cash. Opportunity cost is simply the growth you miss out on by not putting your money to better use. Let's do a quick life-changing comparison. Meet responsible Rachel. She follows the old rules. She saves $30,000 for her 6-month emergency fund and puts it in a high-yield savings account. We'll be generous and say she gets a consistent 4% APY for the next 10 years. Now meet strategic Sarah. She plays by the new rules. She decides that much idle cash is a drag on her finances. She keeps 1 month of expenses, $5,000, in that same high-yield savings account. She invests the other $25,000 in a simple, low-cost S&P 500 index fund. What happens in 10 years? The historical average annual return of the S&P 500 is about 10%. Of course, this is just an average. Some years are up and some are down. Let's use that conservative 10% for our math. After 10 years, responsible Rachel's $30,000, earning 4%, has grown to about $44,407. She feels safe. She did what she was told. Now let's check on strategic Sarah. Her $5,000 in savings grew to about $7,401. But her $25,000 in the S&P 500 index fund, averaging 10% growth per year, has ballooned to over $64,843. Rachel's total is $44,407. Sarah's total is over $72,244. That is a difference of nearly $28,000. Let that sink in. By following the popular advice, Rachel is almost $30,000 poorer than Sarah. She didn't lose money in a market crash. She lost it by playing it safe. The safety of her cash cost her tens of thousands of dollars in real wealth. Over 20 or 30 years, that difference could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, the difference between a comfortable retirement and just scraping by. The lie is that a pile of cash is your safety net. The truth is, it's an anchor holding you back from building the kind of durable wealth that can protect you from any emergency. The math is pretty clear, but the real-world problems with the old 6-month rule go even deeper. The whole framework is built on shaky ideas about how our lives actually work today. First, it totally misunderstands the income replacement problem. The rule is about covering your expenses. But in a real emergency, like losing your job, your biggest problem isn't just paying the bills. It's replacing your income. The average job search can take around 5 months, and much longer during a recession or for senior-level roles. A 6-month fund starts a terrifying countdown clock. By month 3, anxiety kicks in. And by month 4, it turns into desperation. You become far more likely to accept a lower-paying job out of fear, which can set your career and long-term earnings back by years. A larger, properly invested buffer gives you the one thing you need most in a negotiation: time. Second, the rule ignores the hidden fixed cost explosion. When people calculate their bare-bones budget, they think of the mortgage, utilities, and groceries. They forget about the rigid, non-negotiable costs of modern life. Things like high-deductible health insurance, premiums, car payments, and childcare costs don't just disappear when your income does. Your bare-bones budget is often a fantasy. For anyone in a high cost of living area, a 6-month fund could mean saving over $30,000 just for the basics, a nearly impossible mountain for many to climb. This creates a vicious psychological trap. Having only a few months of cash makes you feel like you're constantly living on the edge. You're afraid to invest. You make decisions from a place of scarcity, and you're always one bad day away from a debt spiral. True financial security isn't just about having cash. It's having the mental freedom to make smart, long-term decisions without being ruled by fear. So, if the all-cash fund is a trap, what's the answer? Do you just throw everything into the stock market and cross your fingers? Absolutely not. That's not a strategy. It's gambling. The answer is to stop thinking of your emergency fund as one big pot of money and start seeing it as a multi-layered tiered safety net. This model gives you immediate cash for small problems while letting the rest of your money grow and stay protected for the big ones. Tier 1, immediate cash, 1 month of essential expenses. This is your first line of defense. Keep 1 month of your absolute must-pay living expenses in a high-yield savings account. This is for the my car just broke down, the dishwasher's leaking, the dog ate something weird kind of emergency. It needs to be liquid, easy to get, and totally safe from market swings. This tier gives you instant cash without having to sell investments. Tier 2, the buffer, 2 to 3 months of expenses. This is where we change the game. Instead of letting months 2, 3, and 4 get eaten alive by inflation, you put this money to work in low-risk investments designed to outpace inflation. The goal isn't to get rich, it's to preserve your purchasing power while staying accessible. Great options here include Series 1 bonds from the US, Treasury, which are specifically designed to protect your money from inflation by adjusting their rate. As of early 2026, new I bonds have a composite rate of 4.03%. Just know you can only buy $10,000 per person per year, and you can't touch the money for the first 12 months. Another solid option is a short-term Treasury bond ETF. These are funds that hold government bonds that mature in a few years, making them very stable while often providing a better yield than a savings account. These are your inflation shields, making sure your savings don't lose value over time. Tier 3, the real wealth protector, your investment portfolio. This is the most important mindset shift. Your true emergency fund for a major long-term event, like a disability or prolonged unemployment, isn't your cash. It's your growing investment portfolio. Beyond the 3 to 4 months you have in tiers 1 and 2, your best protection is a robust, diversified portfolio of assets like S&P 500 index funds that are constantly working for you. Now, I know the first objection, but what if the market crashes right when I need the money? That's exactly what tiers 1 and 2 are for. They are your firewall, designed to give you months of breathing room so you never have to sell your long-term investments at the worst possible time. True security isn't a pile of stagnant cash. It's an ever-growing portfolio of assets that can generate more wealth than any emergency could ever take away. The biggest financial lie of all was that one single rule could ever apply to everyone. The tiered safety net is a framework, not a rigid prescription. How you build it should depend entirely on your life. If you're in a dual-income household with stable jobs, you're lower risk. A 3 to 6 month fund spread across the tiers might be perfect for you. If you're a single-income family, especially with kids, your risk is higher. You should aim for 6 to 12 months of expenses across your tiers with a bigger cushion in the stability of tiers 1 and 2. If you're a freelancer, work in sales, or are self-employed, you live with income volatility, so you need the biggest buffer. Aim for 9 to 12 months to smooth out those gaps between projects or commission checks. If you're getting close to retirement, you need to protect what you've built. Having 12 months or even more in very stable assets like tiers 1 and 2 can provide a critical buffer that prevents you from selling investments in a down market during your early retirement years. Stop asking, do I have 6 months saved? Start asking, is my safety net structured for my life? And is it optimized to grow instead of just sitting there? The old definition of financial safety, a big pile of cash doing nothing, is broken. In today's economy, that strategy isn't just inefficient. It's a guaranteed way to lose purchasing power and fall behind financially. The new definition of safe is being strategic. It's a layered approach that gives you cash for small bumps in the road, a buffer that beats inflation for bigger issues, and a powerful, growing investment portfolio as your ultimate shield against financial disaster. Stop letting your safety net be an anchor. It's time to turn it into a springboard. Now, I want to hear from you. How do you think about your emergency fund? Are you already using a tiered approach? Let me know your strategy in the comments below.